Hello everyone, Paul Santilla here. I head up the SCIP organization, SCIP, Strategic Consortium of Intelligence Professionals. I'm here with my good friend, Thomas Rethinking.
Pleasure to be here, Paul.
We're here at Intellicon, New Orleans. So great event. We're wrapping up quite a few sessions around intelligence, AI, transformational journeys for organizations in the digital age. So Thomas, thank you for joining us today. I wanted to ask some things, your perspectives in the intelligence space. You are an executive, a fractional executive in the intelligence space, as well as many other things you do in strategy and so forth. So I'd like to get your perspective, and what are your thoughts, or what have you been seeing in the industry around where competitive intelligence is going these days?
Well, Paul, great question, because there's no one-stop shop in intelligence anymore. Right? Before there used to be, I was part of a great organization where we pretty much did everything. I was stationed in 4 different geographies, continents actually doing this. We were doing strategy consulting, we were doing monitoring, we're doing the technology bit and the best practices.
Yep.
That doesn't really exist in any corporations anymore, right? But it's actually good, because what I've seen is that many of the companies are now focusing on particular niches in different application areas.
Yeah.
So it's a change. So we've seen some companies are focusing only on strategy, which has been around for a while. Others on sales, others like product marketing, innovation. So it really is the survivors or the thrivers of this industry now are those who are really finding their strong niches and focusing on those niches.
So that's interesting, because I similarly have noticed, and I speak on this quite often, about the intelligence space and how the old model of painting companies or the world with a wide intelligence brush, one size fits all almost sort of thing. And what that's done is it's transformed into more of a bespoke, personalized, niche sort of perspective that I think of what you're describing and what your experience is.
Yeah, but I do think that perhaps that more holistic approach that you're mentioning, it still applies very well to strategy. So when you're talking about strategy, even overall corporate leadership, I think that, if you want to call it old school, whatever we may call it, applies very well, and there still is demand.
That's interesting, really. So let's talk about that. So we have the spectrum of intelligence maturity, I'm going to call it that, within an organization. And as we have here in Intellicon, we have a large analysts, I should say, and practitioner base, but we also cater to the needs of mid-level management and also executive leadership, C-suite type individuals. What have you seen in the perspectives of intelligence in that hierarchical sort of range?
I think it's a difficult question to
Yeah.
answer. I've seen shifts.
Yeah.
I've seen that, well, I can say as a provider of intelligence services, the cycle is a lot longer now.
Interesting.
More vetting. We're a little bit more distant to the end decision maker very often, but that doesn't mean that we're dealing with very strong influencers. So it's become more, I think, more people are involved within the organization to make sure that all, boxes are ticked.
Do you think that impacts some of the time to market aspects or the time to execution? Because there's obviously, the world today operates in real time. That's a phrase I use repeatedly. It's not a batch process world. It's not like things happen and then stop and then things happen again. So that sort of delay mechanism, do you see that being affected in this space at all? Yeah.
I do. I see that just moving forward with a defined scope of work sometimes can take a whole year. And the market, things have changed since then.
100 times,
And so sometimes we're moving forward with something that was predefined a long time ago. By the time there's a kickoff, it has to be recalibrated.
Yep.
And sometimes it's not, and that really affects it.
Absolutely. So to that point, some of the challenges I've noticed is really around the, and this has gotten better actually since COVID, and there's many reasons for that in my opinion, but there's challenges that the C-suite or the executive decision making is starting to be much more receptive to the intelligence discipline and taking that feedback taking that into consideration in the strategy development. Have you been seeing some of that too? Also, not necessarily just from a U.S. base, but you have an international scope to this whole thing. And SCIP, of course, is globalizing much of our efforts. And what are you seeing from a global standpoint in that kind of executive absorption or executive sponsorship around the intelligence discipline?
I think it varies from company to company and industry to industry, but I agree. But I think that there's a correlation between that executive sponsorship and also the level of ownership within the CI practitioner or whatever the title may be. It's not always the same, but the person who's in charge of that. It goes back to that old topic. It's not data, it's insights.
Yeah.
What does this mean?
Yeah.
How can this help me make a decision?
And what am I supposed to do with it?
Yeah, and exactly. So what? Now what are we going to do? So if you don't take that to the executive, it's a brick wall.
Yeah, of course.
Hey, show me the data. The data's all over the place.
Yeah.
And that even goes back to the old thing, AI versus CI. What's the future going to be? Yeah, the future is going to be uncertain if you don't give it the so what does it mean? Right? So if you go to the executive with that, and most executives are receptive to that.
Yeah.
You know, have a little bit of courage sometimes. Maybe don't be arrogant while you say it. Show humility while you're doing it. Say considerations instead of recommendations. I kind of use that a bit.
There's a storytelling element that needs to be part of that sort of recommendation aspect.
I think everybody needs help.
Yeah.
And but there are some CEOs that are very far away, right, from the ground. I think the good CEOs are those, or leadership teams, they know that they're kind of far away and they need their teams to really understand what's happening out there. And they have to be receptive, or else they're going to fall behind.
So you mentioned the question, so what? That's a common, asking so what 5 times every time you look at the data to give you more definitive, narrow down, drill down into what are you really trying to do. And that's an important point. And that's something where I want to also bring the conversation into the AI space. And with IntelliCon and what's happening today, we're including AI. Of course, every company's an AI company now, right? You know, you have a shoe company that says, oh, I use ChatGPT. Oh, you're an AI shoe company. No, it doesn't work that way, right? But it's something that of course, AI is on everyone's strategy list. So AI in the intelligence space, IntelliCon, it's a transformational journey that marries things up. We're talking about primary intelligence, which is really around the human element in that. What have you been seeing on a global sense? I mean, some organizations, some industries embracing it, while others are possibly bracing for it, in a sense. You know, I mean, what have you seen from AI adoption rates in the intelligence space?
Related to primary, you're saying, or in general?
Related to general CI as a general, competitive intelligence in general.
It's related to my previous answer. I mean, the beauty of primary is it's not going to die.
Yeah.
It's always going to be there. I mean, we're doing primary right now.
Of course, yes.
Right? And usually when you're looking at AI, or there's a history to it. Even if you're looking at LLM and models like that, they define certain breaks in history. So that already says, okay, you need primary to go beyond that.
Yeah.
Right? But if, AI is fantastic if you use it to your advantage. And so it equips you for better primary as well. And going back a little bit, even with secondary, AI isn't replacing secondary completely. And I've worked with large companies, talking big 4 companies, that are working with us only for secondary research.
Yeah.
And I'd think, why are they doing this? They're totally capable.
Yeah.
There are many reasons. One is, hey, I don't have the time for that.
Sure.
2 is, I really like your structured approach. Keep at it. And 3, hey, that out-of-the-box thinking is good.
Yeah.
Especially if you complement the secondary insight with a few back to the, hey, what are the potential implications? Right? Get that external view. Hey, they'll end up making the final decision, of course.
Right.
But we're bringing that angle to it.
Sure. You know, AI is another tool in the toolbox, and it's a efficient tool in the sense that it does analytics and does a lot of heavy lifting very quickly. And then again, AI is based on old data. And when you look at the fact that it's based on old data, it's going to have a lot of garbage in it, of course, by definition. But like you're saying, the primary, or the human element, is always going to be necessary for that future-looking aspect.
Yep.
What are you seeing in today's world? I mean, especially as we're transitioning IntelliCon, we're transitioning SCIP into this globalization, broader spectrum. I mean, what are some of your thoughts around that?
I see a lot of traction on the global aspect.
Yeah.
And as you know, I'm also Brazilian, and I started my whole career with CI as a partner of a company in Brazil, which we sold to Kroll Associates, which is a risk management firm. So again, that shows how MI and CI marries with different functions. I mentioned others, I didn't mention risk. And right now I see that there is, I'm part of the CI community in Brazil. They're very engaged. I know you were down there a while ago.
Yes.
Spoke to over 1,000 people.
Yes.
Very engaged. And so I know there's a lot of potential internationally as well. We want to keep that engagement in the US as well. And I think the way to do that is to make sure that we're embracing all the applications of CI.
Yes.
So.
And that's a key point. I think that resonates with me because that's exactly part of the vision that I'm trying to work with in the SCIP community, the expanding SCIP community, is the applications. Anything data-centric has an intelligence component to it, and those applications across the board are really what's building up this ecosystem, as I talk about, and then building up the consortium, which is what SCIP is all about.
Great.
So, very good. Thomas, I appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation.
My pleasure, Paul. Great.
Thank you so much for your support with SCIP and Intellicon, and I hope to work with you in Brazil. That'd be great to have an event down there.
Thank you, Paul.
Outstanding. Thank you, sir.
Take care.